Understanding soil health and composting. Welcome to the Afri-Eden AgriConnect International Organic Farming Training Lesson 2. This lesson is composed of 8 modules and a case study, compiled and presented by Gladys Talon, USDA NOPE Organic Operations Expert. Module 1. Understanding soil health. What is soil health? Soil health refers to the continued capacity of soil to function as a vital living ecosystem that sustains plants, animals, and humans. Components of soil health. Physical properties. The physical properties of soil health includes soil texture, structure, compaction, water infiltration, and retention. The chemical properties of soil health includes pH, nutrient availability, cation exchange capacity. The biological properties of soil includes soil microorganisms, organic matter content, earthworms. Importance of soil health in organic farming. Nutrient cycling. Soil microorganisms decompose organic matter, converting nutrients into forms plants can absorb. Water retention and drainage. Healthy soils holds moisture while allowing excess water to drain, reducing the risks of erosion and drought stress. Disease suppression. A biodiverse soil ecosystem can naturally suppress soil-borne diseases through competition and predation. Root development. Good soil structure promotes deep root system, providing plants with better access to water and nutrients. Soil health indicators. Physical indicators include soil structure, compaction, water infiltration, and erosion. Chemical indicators of soil health include soil pH, nutrient content, NP and K, etc., salinity levels. Biological indicators include organic matter content, microbial biomass, earthworm count, enzyme activity. Assessing soil health. You can assess your soil health through soil testing. Regular soil testing for nutrient levels, pH, and organic matter is essential. Laboratory soil test. Detailed analysis of nutrient availability, pH, CAC, and more. On-farm test. Simple tests like soil texture assessment, infiltration test, and earthworm counts can be done. Visual observation. Surface crusting, color, such as dark soils, often indicates higher organic matter and crop vigor. All this can be used to assess the health of your soil. Module 2. Composting for soil health. Introduction to composting. Composting is the biological decomposition of organic materials under controlled aerobic conditions to produce a nutrient-rich organic amendment. Compost and soil health. Compost improves soil structure, provides slow-release nutrients, increases organic matter, and enhances microbial activity. Types of composting. Aerobic composting. Aerobic composting requires oxygen, leads to faster decomposition and higher quality compost. Anaerobic composting. Anaerobic composting occurs without oxygen, slower in process, and can produce foul odor. Vermicomposting. Composting uses worms, usually red wigglers, to break down organic materials into nutrient-rich worm casting. Compost ingredients: green materials, normally rich in nitrogen. We have grass clippings, vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and manure. Then we have brown materials rich in carbon, dry leaves, straw, wood chips, cardboard, etc. Then we have water and air. The ideal nitrogen to carbon ratio is 2 to 1. That is, green materials 2 buckets, brown materials 1 bucket. The composting process. Stage 1, mesophilic phase. The temperature around this phase is between 15 to 40 degrees Celsius. It involves the initial breakdown of easily degradable compounds by mesophilic bacteria. Stage 2, thermophilic phase. The temperature rises up to 40 to 66 or 70 degrees Celsius. Thermophilic microbes take over, breaking down together compounds and killing pathogens. Stage 3, cooling phase. This phase, the temperature is around 40 to 20 degrees Celsius. Compost cools down and mesophilic bacteria return to complete the decomposition process. Stage 4, curing phase. The compost matures and stabilizes, transforming into humus. Managing the compost pile. Pile size. The ideal size is around 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters for good heat retention and aeration. Temperature monitoring. Compost should maintain a temperature of 55 to 65 degrees Celsius for pathogen destruction and efficient breakdown. Turning. Turn the compost pile every 1 to 2 weeks to ensure proper aeration. Moisture. Keep the pile as moist as a wrung out sponge, about 50 to 60% moisture content. How to know if my compost is ready? Compost is ready when it is dark, crumbly, and has an earthy smell without recognizable food or yard waste. Compost ingredients. As stated earlier, for good compost, you need green materials, which involves grass clippings, vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, and manure. You also need brown materials that are carbon rich, dry leaves, straw, wood chips, and cardboard. You need water for moisture, which is crucial for microbial activity, but the pile should not be waterlogged. You also need air for aeration. Ensure oxygen for aerobic microorganisms. Turn the pile regularly to introduce oxygen. Module 3. Benefits of composting to soil health. Composting helps increase organic matter. Compost adds organic matter to the soil, improving aggregation and reducing compaction. Organic matter holds water, reducing the need for irrigation and helping plants withstand drought conditions. Microbial activity. Composting also helps increase the population of beneficial microorganisms. These organisms break down organic matter, fix nitrogen, and suppress soil-borne diseases. Nutrient supply. Compost provides a slow release of major nutrients. Composting converts complex nutrients into a form that plants can easily absorb while minimizing nutrient losses. Soil pH buffering. Compost helps buffer soil pH, making it more resilient to pH fluctuations and improving nutrient uptake. Module 4: Practical application: Building and maintaining a compost pile. Site selection: choose a well-drained area away from water sources. Ensure accessibility for materials and turning equipment. Materials and tools. Materials: green and brown organic materials, as we had discussed earlier. Tools: pitchfork, shovel, compost thermometer, and hose. Step-by-step guide to building a compost pile. Layering: start with a layer of coarse materials like straw or twigs for aeration. Alternate layers of green materials and brown materials. Moisten: lightly water each layer as you build. Turn regularly. Every 1 to 2 weeks, turn the pile to aerate and redistribute heat. Monitor temperature. Use a compost thermometer to ensure optimal heat between 55 to 65 degrees Celsius. 5. Compost readiness. Compost is ready when it is dark, crumbly, with earthy smell. This usually takes between 3 to 7 days for hot compost and 3 to 12 months for regular composting processes. How to make a compost pile. Making compost involves the decomposition of organic materials to create nutrient-rich soil that benefits plants. Here's a step-by-step guide on how to make compost. 1. Choose a compost bin or pile. You can either build a compost pile in your garden or use a compost bin. Ensure it's placed in a well-drained area with good airflow. 2. Gather organic materials. Materials such as green materials, fruits and vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, grass clippings, manure from herbivores like cows, horses, and goats, brown materials, dried leaves, straw or hay, shredded paper or cardboard, wood chips or sawdust, and sometimes egg shells. 3. Layer the materials. Start with a layer of coarse brown materials like sticks or straws at the bottom for airflow. Alternate between green materials and brown organic materials. A good ratio is about 2 parts brown to 1 part green materials. Moisten each layer lightly with water, but don't soak it. The compost should feel like a damp sponge. 4. Turn the pile regularly. Every few weeks, use a pitchfork or shovel to turn the compost pile. This introduces oxygen, which speeds up decomposition. Keep the pile aerated, moist but not soggy. If it's too wet, add more brown materials. If too dry, add water or green materials. 5. Wait for decomposition. The compost will heat up and begin breaking down over several months. It typically takes 2 to 6 months for materials to fully decompose for cold composting, depending on the size of the pile, weather conditions, and materials used. For hot composting, it takes a much shorter time. It takes days. 6. Check for readiness. Finished compost will be dark, crumbly, and have an earthy smell. There should be no recognizable food scraps or plant materials when your compost is ready. 7. Use the compost. Spread the compost in your garden or mix it with soil for planting or use it as mulch around plants. It adds nutrients, improves soil structure, and helps retain moisture. This method is perfect for small-scale farming or garden projects. For a faster composting process, consider using worms, vermicomposting, or compost accelerators. Module 5: Compost Quality Control and Usage. Compost quality assessment involves evaluating physical, chemical, and biological properties to ensure it is suitable for use. 1. Physical assessment. Check texture, make sure it's crumbly in appearance. Check dark or brown look. For smell, ensure it has an earthy smell, and temperature should be ambient for mature compost. For chemical assessments, measure the pH level and ensure it falls between 6 to 8, and the nutrient content, check for NPK. Electrical conductivity should be 1 to 3 ds per m, and carbon to nitrogen ratio should be 10 to 1 to 20 to 1. For biological assessments, observe microbial activity, presence of beneficial organisms like earthworms, and ensure compost is free of pathogens and weed seeds. Maturity test. Conduct germination and saltiver tests to confirm compost stability and readiness for use. Using compost. Soil amendment. Mix into garden beds or new planting areas to enhance soil structure and moisture retention. Mulching. Apply a 2 to 3-inch layer around plants to retain moisture, suppress weeds, and regulate soil temperature. Use as top dressing. For lawns, spread a thin layer over lawns to improve grass health and soil aeration. Compost tea. Use as liquid fertilizer to nourish plants and promote microbial life. Container gardening. Blend with potting soil for nutrient-rich containers. Vegetable gardens. Enrich soil for better crop yields. Tree and shrubs planting. Agroforestry. Support root growth and soil aeration. Erosion control. Apply to slopes to reduce erosion or improve water infiltration. Module 6: Sustainable Soil Management Practices. Sustainable soil management practices include crop rotation. Crop rotations prevent nutrient depletion and disrupt pest and disease cycles. Cover cropping. Grow cover crops such as legumes and grasses during off seasons to protect the soil and also add organic matter and fix nitrogen to the soil. Reduced tillage or no tillage. Minimize soil disturbance to maintain soil structure and preserve beneficial organisms. Agroforestry and perennial systems. Integrate trees and perennial plants in farming systems to enhance biodiversity. It will also reduce the need for you to farm year in, year out on your soil, reduce erosion, and improve micronutrients. Module 7: Challenges and solutions in composting. Common challenges of composting includes odors caused by excessive moisture or lack of aeration, slow decomposition resulting from incorrect carbon to nitrogen ratio or insufficient moisture. Pest infestation can occur if compost contains meat, dairy, or oils. Solutions to the challenges: balance materials. Ensure proper balance of green and brown materials with an ideal ratio of 2:1. Improve aeration. Turn the pile regularly and avoid waterlogging. Keep it simple. Avoid adding meat, dairy, or oils to prevent pests. Module 8: Advanced composting techniques. Types of compost. Bokashi composting. Bokashi compost. A fermentation-based composting method
Bokashi
that
compost is a
works faster than
fermentation-based
traditional
composting
methods
method
and can
that
handle
works
more
faster
diverse
than
waste,
traditional methods
including meat
and can
and
handle
dairy.
more diverse organic
Hot
waste,
composting.
including meat and dairy.
A method to
Hot
accelerate the
composting,
process through
a
regular
method
turning
that
and
accelerates the
temperature
process
monitoring,
through regular
producing
turning and
compost
temperature
in as
monitoring,
little as
producing
6 to
compost
8
in as
weeks.
little as 6 to 8 weeks.
Berkeley hot
Berkeley
composting.
hot composting.
This form of
This kind of
composting was
composting
created
process was
by
created
Berkeley
by Berkeley
University in
University
California.
in
This
California.
method
This
finishes the
method
composting
finishes
process
the
with
composting
good
process with
to use
good to
compost
use
in
compost in 18
18
days.
days. Pros and cons of composting types we're discussing in this training. Bokashi compost. Advantages. Bokashi composting is fast, space efficient, and produces minimal odors. It allows almost all food scraps, including meat and dairy, to be composted, creating nutrient-rich fertilizer. It's low maintenance and suitable for small spaces. Disadvantages of bokashi composting. The process requires an extra step of burying the waste after fermentation. It relies on airtight containers and can cause odors if done improperly. It has higher initial cost. The compost isn't immediately ready for use and may lead to salt accumulation from certain food scraps.
Hot composting. Advantages. Hot composting is a fast process of producing compost. In 1 to 3 months, it kills pathogens and weeds, creates nutrient-rich compost, and processes larger amounts of waste, making it ideal for larger gardens or farms. Disadvantages. The process is labor-intensive, requiring regular maintenance. It needs ample space and time for setup. If not managed properly, hot compost can produce odors and attract pests. Berkeley hot composting. It is labor intensive. It is a fast way of making compost. It kills pathogens if present, kills weeds, unwanted plants, and invasive seeds. It is good for volume compost. Makes large-scale composting more efficient and manageable. Very good method for cold climates and temperate zones. Disadvantages. Not as nutritious as cold compost. Comparatively less microorganisms are present. It requires a lot more hard work. Can only be done on big scale. Method for making bokashi compost. Materials needed: bokashi bran, effective microorganism treated bran. You can buy or make it yourself by inoculating bran with a mixture of molasses, water, and effective microorganisms. 2. Bokashi bean. A sealed, airtight bin with a spigot at the bottom for draining liquids. Alternatively, you can use a 5-gallon bucket with a lid and place a smaller bucket inside to catch excess liquid. 3. Food scraps. Any organic material such as fruits and vegetable peels, cooked food, dairy, and meat. Bokashi allows these materials, unlike traditional compost. Avoid large bones, excess liquid, and food that has already started to rot. Step-by-step guide. 1. Prepare your bokashi bean. Make sure your bokashi bean is clean and has airtight seal. Place a layer of bokashi bran or inoculated material at the bottom of the bean to kickstart the process. About half inch to 1 inch layer is sufficient. Add food waste. Chop your food waste into smaller pieces to speed up the fermentation process. Add a layer of food waste to the bean, about 2 to 3 inches thick. 3. Sprinkle bokashi bran. Sprinkle a handful, approximately 1 to 2 tablespoonful of bokashi bran over the food waste layer. Ensure all the waste is covered, as the bran contains the microorganisms needed for fermentation. The more moist the food scraps are, the less bran you'll need to use. 4. Compact the waste. Press down the food waste firmly with a flat tool or gloved hands to remove any air pockets. Anaerobic fermentation works best in low oxygen environments. 5. Seal the bean tightly. After compressing, seal the lid with the bean tightly to maintain an anaerobic environment. Oxygen will hinder the process of fermentation. 6. Repeat the process. Continue to add food waste and bokashi bran layers as you accumulate scraps, compacting each layer and resealing the lid. Avoid adding large amounts of liquid to the bean, as it could affect the fermentation process. 7. Drain liquid regularly. Every few days, drain the liquid that collects at the bottom of the bean. This liquid is also called bokashi tea. It is a nutrient-rich liquid that can be diluted but at a 1:100 ratio to be used as fertilizers for plants. If not regularly drained, excess liquid can make the bokashi compost too soggy and reduce the efficiency of the fermentation process. 8. Complete fermentation. Once the bean is full, let the contents sit undisturbed for 10 to 14 days to complete the fermentation process. During this time, keep the bean sealed and continue draining excess liquid. You may notice a sweet sour smell or white mold, which is normal and indicates that fermentation is occurring. After 10 to 14 days, the waste is not fully yet composted but has been fermented. There are a few ways to use the fermented materials. 1. Direct burial. Dig a hole or trench in your garden at least 6 to 8 inches deep and bury the bokashi compost. Cover it with soil and let it break down completely over the next few weeks. The compost will enrich the soil and provide nutrients for future plants. Add to traditional compost. If you have a traditional compost pile, you can add the fermented bokashi material to speed up the composting process. It will break down much faster than fresh organic waste. Mix with soil in containers. For small scale gardening, you can mix the bokashi material directly into containers or raised beds. It give it few weeks to break down fully before planting. Method for making hot compost. Creating a compost in 3 to 10 days is possible with a method called hot composting. This accelerated composting process relies on creating the right conditions for heat-loving microorganisms to rapidly break down organic matter. It requires frequent turning, proper ratios of materials, and adequate moisture. Materials needed. Materials needed are green organic materials to include fresh grass clippings, food scraps such as vegetables and fruits, coffee grounds, green leaves or manure. Brown materials such as dry leaves, straws, sawdust, shredded papers or cardboard. Water, compost bin or pile, shovel or pitchfork. Step by step guide. 1. Choose a right location. Select a well-drained shaded spot in your garden to build your compost pile or place your compost bin. Ensure there's good air circulation around the compost pile. 2. Prepare materials, cut and shred to speed up decomposition. Chop or shred the organic materials into smaller pieces, 1 to 2 inches in size. This increases the surface area for microorganisms to act on, ensuring faster breakdown. 3. Create the right balance of carbon to nitrogen ratio. The optimal ratio for hot composting is 2 parts brown to 1 part green. Example, for every 2 buckets of dry leaves, add 1 bucket of grass clippings or food scraps. Having the correct carbon to nitrogen ratio ensures the pile heats up quickly and decomposes faster. 4. Build the compost pile. Start with a base layer of coarse brown materials like straws or stick to promote airflow. Alternate layers of green, that's nitrogen, and browns, that's carbon. A typical layer thickness would be 4 to 6 inches thick. Mix each layer slightly as you add it to ensure materials blend very well. Your compost pile should be at least 3 by 3 feet in size to maintain enough heat but not too large to manage. 5. Moisten the pile. After layering, water the compost pile thoroughly to ensure all materials are moist but not soaking. The compost should feel like a damp sponge, neither too dry nor too soggy. If it's too dry, the composting process will slow down. If it is too wet, it will become anaerobic and smelly. 6. Monitor the temperature. Within 24 to 48 hours, the pile should begin to heat up, ideally reaching temperatures between 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 54 to 71 degrees Celsius. The heat kills pathogens and weed seeds, and it also accelerates decomposition. A compost thermometer can help you to track this process. 7. Turn the pile regularly. To maintain aeration and ensure pile heats evenly, turn the compost every 1 to 2 days during the 3 to 10 days period. Use a shovel or pitchfork to bring outer materials to the center where the temperature is highest. Frequently turning helps introduce oxygen, which is crucial for aerobic bacteria driving decomposition. If the pile isn't heating up well, Adjust the moisture to add more green material. Maintain moisture and temperature. Continue monitoring moisture levels or add water if the pile feels too dry. Ensure the pile maintains heat. If it cools too easily, it may need more greens, which is the nitrogen materials. Harvest the compost. After 3 to 10 days of consistent turning and proper conditions, the compost will be ready. The compost will no longer heat up. The materials will appear broken down, dark brown, and crumbly with a rich earthy smell. Key tips: cut materials small. The smaller the pieces, the faster the breakdown. Frequent turning. Regularly turning the pile is essential for keeping the process aerobic and ensuring rapid decomposition. Proper moisture. Keep the pile moist but not waterlogged. Add water or dry green materials accordingly to adjust. Keep if hot. If the pile isn't reaching high temperature, it may need more nitrogen rich greens or better aeration. Case studies. Examples of successful composting projects globally, local adaptations and benefits. Bokashi composting. Highlights of successful composting projects that have made local adaptation to maximize sustainability and yield. Urban Japan. In urban areas of Japan, bokashi composting has been successfully implemented by families and small communities to manage organic waste efficiently. Through local government programs, residents receive bokashi buckets and bran to transform kitchen scraps into compost. This method reduces landfill waste while providing nutrient-rich soil amendments. Local adaptation for Africa. Urban farming. In African cities with dense population, bokashi composting can help manage kitchen waste into while contributing to urban farming efforts. For instance, in Lagos, Nigeria, smallholder farmers could adopt bokashi to enrich the soil in small backyards or rooftop gardens. Cost effectiveness. Bokashi has low input requirements such as locally produced bran made from wheat or rice bran, make it cost effective for African farmers who may lack excess access to expensive fertilizers. Moreover, organic matter is fermented rather than decomposed, leading to faster results, which is vital for small scale farms that needs rapid nutrient recycling. In the Google Classroom, you will find a resource on how to make your bokashi bran. Water retention. Bokashi compost increases soil organic matter, which improves water retention, a significant benefit for African farmers facing drought or irregular rainfall patterns. Benefits for African organic farmers. Accelerated composting. Bokashi produces usable compost in just few weeks, which allows for faster soil improvement in between growing seasons. Reduce odor and space needs. Since bokashi composting is done anaerobically, it reduces the unpleasant odors associated with traditional composting, making it more feasible for small farms near homes. Improved soil health. Bokashi enriches the soil microbiome, which helps organic farmers build soil fertility over time without relying on chemical inputs. Organoponicos in Cuba is also one of the successful composting projects that have made local adaptations to maximize sustainability and yield. In the aftermath of the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, Cuba faced a severe shortage of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. The country depended adopted organic agriculture, particularly through the use of hot composting. Organoponicos, urban organic farms, use hot composting to recycle organic waste from urban areas into compost that is applied to crops. Local adaptations for Africa. Community composting. African urban centers can emulate Cuba's community composting system. Farmers in townships or peri-urban areas could collect organic waste from markets and households to produce hot compost for their farms. This reduces dependency on external inputs while improving soil fertility. Climate adaptation. Hot composting is particularly suitable for African regions with a warm climate, as high temperatures help accelerate the decomposition process. African farmers can take advantage of year-round warm temperatures to keep compost piles active and productive. Benefits for African organic farmers. Pathogen-free compost. The high temperature, ranging from 55 to 70 degrees Celsius, is hot composting. In hot composting kills harmful pathogens, ensuring that the compost is safe for use, especially in organic systems where synthetic chemicals are not allowed. Soil regeneration. Hot composting helps regenerate depleted soil, which is particularly beneficial in Africa, where soil erosion and degradation are a major challenge. The nutrient-rich compost improves soil structure, promoting better water infiltration and root growth. Use of agricultural waste. Farmers can use agricultural byproducts like crop residues and manure for hot composting, creating a circular system where farm waste is turned into valuable fertilizers. Conclusion. Lessons for African organic farmers. Both bokashi and hot composting offer significant opportunities for African farmers to improve soil fertility, manage waste, and enhance productivity while maintaining organic farming standards. Bokashi's compact, odor-free, and fast-acting nature makes it ideal for small-scale urban and peri-urban farmers, while hot composting, pathogen killing, and soil improving qualities makes it suitable for large scale rural operations. African organic farmers can adopt these composting methods by leveraging local resources such as kitchen scraps, crop residues, or livestock manure to produce compost that supports healthy, sustainable farming systems. These methods not only reduces the reliance on chemical fertilizers, but also promote soil health and resilience, which are critical for long-term food security and environmental sustainability across the continent. Thank you for being a part of this lesson. See you in the next lesson.